Welcome to the Wild Robert and Ronnie show. Bob ain't made it yet. He's forgot, I guess. But we're here, and we sure do appreciate you watching us. If you're watching us on UGG TV, and I kind of assume you are, you'll notice that we've remodeled it and got a whole new look. And going to make a few little changes besides that and see how it works out. Get something a little more manageable. What's going on, Mr. Henson?
Viruses and taxes, I reckon.
Taxes. You're going to get another dose of that tonight.
Yeah. I'd almost forgot about that.
Here's another thing I noticed. There's a guy told me I approximated that they had poured $20,000 worth of sand in the lake out there at the Money Hole Park. But I was informed that they actually budgeted $22,000
For sand?
$22,000 to pour sand in the lake, which is against the law. On average, the average household of people that actually own their own home in this county, it takes 88 families to buy the sand out there to pour in the lake. But they ain't nowhere they can cut no money.
There's always a way that you can cut money. I don't care if it's in a household or whatever else.
Well, we always do when we run out, don't we?
You darn right we do. Well, it boils back down, if you're spending somebody else's money, I guess it makes a difference. You don't pay as close attention to it. To me, it seems to me like, first of all, we only have so many property owners in this county. And I heard somebody state that there was 3,000 or 4,000 or something like that. Now, it may not be right, between 3,000 and 4,000 property owners. And when you raise property taxes, I've heard all sorts of arguments about it, that people who rent property end up paying these taxes and whatever. But what about the farmers out here and other people who don't rent property? They have no one that they can raise or that they can pass this tax on to. They have got to they've got to absorb that tax.
They certainly do.
And in my opinion, there comes a point that you continue to absorb it, then you have to start giving up things in order to pay this tax. And I can go back to another thing. It's actually a lease agreement. Your lease payments are going up, is what it is. With the regulations that are placed on property anymore, and if you look up the definition of own, one little 3-letter word, we don't actually own the real estate. The definition is that what you own is that what you can control or do control. And from my point of view, there's very little control over real estate. If it's in a municipality, it's city of La Follette, for example. Every square inch of La Follette is zoned, which means they tell you, the city, whenever I say they, the city fathers...
People with no vested interest tell you how to manage it.
That's correct. And they don't have any idea. Some of them may, I'll say that. But a piece of property, it's kind of like the property that we run our business on. It was external. It was outside the city when we purchased it.
Me too.
All right. Now, when the city decided to annex it into the city, they made a statement, and I have learned from time past, statements don't mean anything. Statements is nothing.
They don't even obey their own laws.
Well, that's correct. It's only words. And if these words are not put into writing as a law or a rule, don't waste your time with them. Don't even whoever was in control of the city at that time. And of course, it's not the people who are there now, but the people who were there at that time, they promised us that we would not come under the rules or whatever, the standing rules of the city of La Follette. I have found out that that is not true.
I have too.
I've been cited to court for different things, and then I found out in an indirect way that there were people in positions of power that wanted to do away, they wanted to I don't know what you call it, but some of the property was a junkyard.
Mm-hmm.
And it was grandfathered in the state licensing part of it, but yet they had a meeting, a consultation, for which we were not invited or was not supposed to know anything about it, and we found out about it at a later time. And this is how, I guess you'd say, government works.
Well, I know that they do not even obey their own regulations, and they violate the law probably on a daily basis. And I am thoroughly disgusted with politics and politicians. I don't think it makes any difference anymore. I used to try to get people excited to make changes when they could, and a little over 4 years ago I gave up on that because I saw that people were not interested in anything, especially if they had to stick their neck out a little bit. And for sticking my neck out, they come down on me in violation of their own laws. And there was two people, well actually it was three, but there was two people who offered help during the situation, and I'll explain that three to you in just a minute. But Jerry Kidd came down here.
Yes, sir, he did.
And you and Raymond, that's the two I'm calling one, assisted me in digging out the stuff they had thrown over the hill. You gave me permission to go get it. And I appreciate those two people, and just between you and me, everybody else can kiss my hind end. I mean, I appreciate the business, and I want to do business with people, but when it comes to politics, I'm not involved anymore.
I'm getting a lot to the same point. In the last election, I saw things that were done, and I see things that are done, and things that we can't even speak about because of the repercussions that'll happen to you.
Yep. You can't stick up for what's right.
No, sir. If you bring light to a lot of things that are going on, you know, you and I had a discussion one time a long time ago when it was kind of a little question and answer thing, and I don't know whether you asked me or I asked you, who in this community would the government have less effect or the least amount or least ability to control them?
People living under bridges.
Well, you and I both come to the same conclusion. There was once a gentleman here who rode a bicycle, and on that bicycle was a sign that said, "Help a Vietnam Veteran." And I think the bicycle and whatever, but you and I both come to the conclusion that that person was the one that they could have least control over.
Whatever happened to him?
I think he ended up in an institution possibly, and then I believe he's deceased. His house that he resided in was in ill repair, and it was eventually torn down is what happened. I didn't realize at the time, but his residence was straight across from the property I'm talking about, the TNH party property. But anyhow, that was something we discussed. Government uses, and I'm talking about city, county, all the way to the top, the way they control people is by threatening to take what they have acquired. And if you have acquired anything like a residence or anything else, or laid back some retirement or whatever, that is what they use in order to control you.
Well, you know, right now a lot of people think that the big businesses are the driving force for this country, and they're not. And those big businesses only got to be big businesses because they started out as little businesses. And when you take away the motivation, which means to be able to own and control a business or piece of property or create your own wealth and keep it and be proud of it, when you take that away, you destroy any motivation to create, to create wealth, to build new stuff. We're on the road to that now in a hurry. And I got one other thing to say. I made a prediction or made a statement a while back that if they really wanted to stimulate the economy, all they had to do was get energy prices down. And you'll notice that the jobless rate dropped below 6% the first time since 2008, I believe.
Yeah.
Now I know there's some quibbling over the numbers, but there's definitely been a little improvement in the economy. I also noticed that gas prices are below $3 a gallon for the first time in 3 or 4 years. So I see that correlation, and I'm just an old dumb hillbilly. These people know it too. This year driving energy prices up is holding our economy back. And we have, and the only reason gas prices come down because the private market and private property is producing more petroleum. We could produce a lot more if we'd turn some of this here reserve properties we've got loose that the government stole from the people. The government shouldn't own anything. They should not own not one thing, but they do. They own more of the West, more land in Mississippi than private people do. Much more.
If the government did, they don't even lease a lot of this property out west. And I believe it was President Clinton that took under hundreds of thousands of acres out in the west.
Utah, yep.
Yeah, and I don't think you're even allowed to ride a horse on it or walk on it, I don't believe. I think it's strictly
Well, they're in the
nature.
process of doing the same thing some more.
Oh, yeah. There was a move, and this has been a while back, and I guess it's still out there. They were trying to take so many miles north and south of the border between Oklahoma and Texas. That, it runs up, goes to the Panhandle, or whatever you want to call it out there. But the people bucked up on that thing real strong about it.
Well, there's supposedly a private group, and that's not hardly honest. It's a private group, but it has the force of eminent domain behind it, so it's not really a private group. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to establish a wilderness area from sea to sea down in the heartland of America, and actually have one corridor all the way from sea to sea where it's considered a wilderness. And the people that are in favor of this would like to see us all living in these little consolidated boxes and nobody making any use of that reserve property and expand it at every opportunity, not create any wealth with it, just you could visit it by permits,
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a...
And they only going to give permits to their selected people. They ain't going to give hillbillies any permits.
I understand that. There's a move or a push, and it's very low profile in the city of Knoxville to increase apartment buildings, apartment housing, and all this type of thing. And I've read some articles from the mayor, Rogero, I believe is her name. I call her Roseanne Rogero, but I'm wrong about that part of it. But her name is Rogero, I believe. Madeline, I believe is what it is. That's right. But they are very...
Roger Rose her name.
Yeah, but anyhow, they're pushing for condensed housing to where that...
You're going to be a star?
You got... the apartment buildings, just like where the old Baptist Hospital was, that's going to become apartments, and there's untold different places that are going to be put into apartments. And when I read these articles, these properties are transferring and whatever to land developers. no matter if some from Texas or different places or California or whatever. But anyhow, the end result is to get more people in a smaller area, downtown. Whenever it's kind of a subtle way of doing it.
Well, it's a planned outfit. They've been planning this. These planners, here's the problem. If you sat down with a piece of paper and say what's the most efficient use of property, that's to have everybody in a consolidated place so you don't have to drive far. You can have all the living stuff, and then you ride a bus just a little bit further out to the work area, and you have all this unspoiled property that nobody's using, and that looks good on paper, but it don't work. People don't get motivated to go live in the box and ride a bus to work and not own nothing, not accomplish anything in life. They don't want that. There are a few people that do, but it's not going to. There's going to be no wealth generation. There's going to be no innovation. The only thing you're going to do is just play with the rules.
Throwing a rock at you out there, I said I'm about to go to sleep in the car.
Okay.
Well, we didn't have no rock. We didn't have a rock.
And I believe it's illegal to heave a projectile. I believe that's
I said
law.
about reading the paper about half dozen, and I didn't realize what time it was.
You gonna go down and watch them raise your taxes this evening?
Huh?
You gonna go down and watch them raise your taxes this evening?
Oh, you want to go?
No, I can't go, but I got to haul some lumber. But 6 o'clock, they're gonna go down there and raise your taxes.
I know they are.
I don't think they're gonna let you talk about it either.
Right, I doubt it.
Yeah. I don't believe it would make any difference if we were allowed to talk on it or not. I think the decisions.
It was made a long time ago.
Are we on yet?
Yeah, been
Hey,
on
folks,
for
how
18 minutes.
Sorry I cruised in here late, but at least you were spared about 15 minutes of my countenance. Yeah. Hey, Bob bought me another goat today.
How'd you like to buy another or two? I can keep you in jail all the time.
He said that right. I got enough now to get me in jail.
What kind you buy?
I bought a Nubian.
Billy or Ned?
Billy. Yeah, but he's young, and that old big white Nubian I got out there. I'm going to go up there tomorrow and cut him a stump off to get on.
Something to climb on. Yeah.
He's pretty.
You need to go out there and lay you down some set 2x, 2x4 or 2x6 or something from one stump to the other, so they can stay in practice. I saw one time someplace, and there was an old car frame, and that goat would get up and walk down that railing of that car frame. It was unbelievable how sure-footed those things are.
Why, they don't fall. Let's see here.
Right.
But what we was talking about condensing population and stuff, I saw an article one time about how Russia does this, and they regulate, like if they build an apartment house or apartments, the apartments are located somewhere close to the manufacturing. Like if they have a factory, they'll have a housing right close to it.
Look at this.
Right, what are we looking at?
16 goats in a tree.
Huh?
16 goats in a tree.
That's amazing.
How about that? I'm telling you, they are absolutely amazing. Goats are, you know.
Yeah.
You can find this on YouTube. Just Google goats in a tree.
Well, no wonder they're up the tree. There's nothing on the ground for them to eat there.
Well, that's right. But now they don't hesitate to climb a tree.
Right. How about that? Well, goats are amazing, but what you were talking about here, the way they locate their apartment houses close to the manufacturing. Well, you know, back before
Now here's another.
everybody could afford an automobile, you had your mill towns.
Right.
The towns existed mainly for people to move into and work in the mills.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what
like
the
a mining
point-
camp
that
or
was the
whatever.
point of the city even existing.
You see that?
Yeah,
See
Is that
them there
dam?
little dots on the
Right.
side of that dam?
right.
Them goats.
Well, what are the surely there's not any grass up there.
There's grass growing in the cracks, and they're walking around there picking.
Well, I'll be.
Yeah, I've seen
That's
that
amazing.
one before.
That's amazing.
About that.
But in Russia, they put the parking lots a distance from the apartments to which you have to walk to them. In other words, you don't drive right up to the apartment.
Right.
They build apartment buildings close together with sidewalks,
Right.
and then you, like I say, you don't pull right up to it. So, thus, if you bring in groceries or whatever, anything you bring in, you've got to carry it in.
Right.
But China does something to the same extent.
Now, I've got something to show you about China.
Okay.
You know, we think we've got property rights here.
Yeah.
Well, we know we
Oh,
don't.
I remember that
Is this
that article.
in China when they were building the
It's when
Olympic Stadium.
It's when they were building this road. You see what they done?
They went around that house.
They wouldn't sell that house, and they built a road and left the house there. I think they finally settled and tore it down. But for a long time,
Well, you know,
they would not tear this man's house down, and they had a 4-lane road.
you know, we could use all that type of apartment designing and everything here in Campbell County and La Follette, and we still wouldn't have any jobs.
Nope.
Well, creating jobs is a whole different thing. But also now in China, on a lot of these housing places that are next to the factories and the housing built next to the factory, they're having to put fences around the top of them somehow because they've got so many people who go up on top and jump off. They commit suicide. These factory
If you
workers.
pile rats together, they start killing each other and killing
I
themselves.
really think if people are that crazy, what they need to do is leave the fences off and let them jump.
They don't
Well,
want to clean up after
what
them.
I think what it is, it's the monotony, or it would be my opinion of the fact of working in these factories would be so monotonous that you're just, I don't know how you would describe it other than paid slavery or something along those lines, where you're required to be at a certain location, do a certain thing, and that's it. But now this is just an article I saw, and I saw it a long time ago. Now when I say a long time, now I'm talking about within a year or two, because I think most of my memory goes away after a certain point. My computer overloads.
You know,
Yeah, it's full.
I have some feelings about people who don't work and who won't work because they don't like what they have to do. It never did occur to me that I was supposed to like what I was doing. I worked mainly to make a living and to support my family. And back when I was teaching school and farming, that was before they put so many after hours requirements and so much, the paperwork you have now. Many a day when I was not busy in my own work, I would go and hire myself out to somebody on a farm, a lot of times for $5 a day plus a good meal at lunchtime. Now, I had other people that were working jobs making $35, $40 a day, but this fitted in with my schedule where I could do that, and it was better than me sitting twiddling my thumbs, not because I enjoyed working in that hot boiling sun and doing the strenuous manual labor that was required. I did it because I needed to make a living. And nowadays you don't have that incentive because you can sit on your rear end and get fat, lazy, and out of breath and draw a check.
This fella told me one time he never saw a fat person that wasn't hungry. That fella named Andrews.
Right. But I have basically worked doing something all my life. I just don't enjoy not having something to do. I prefer to be paid and be paid well, but that don't always happen.
Well, there's 2 or 3 things. Motivation. You were bettering yourself. And there's a sense of accomplishment in doing a job and doing it right. There was somebody once told me one time, it may have been my mom, I'm not sure. But anyhow, they said that it was an old saying said anybody can go out here and dig a ditch and earn $1. But what they do with that dollar is what counts. In other words, you go out and dig a ditch for $1 and you go out and waste that
$1.50 for lunch.
Yeah, you're not doing anything if you put that dollar to work. Now this is where we've got our economies are getting into bad situation. Right now you can go out and earn $1. You take that dollar and invest it. Chances are it's not going to come back to you with a fair return. You take CDs right now. They're not even earning enough
You have to pay the bank store your money now.
That's correct, you do. They're not earning enough to outpace inflation. As actually, if you've got money in the bank, you're losing money because the value of it is decreasing daily. We don't.
You lose money if you put money in the bank.
That's right. You're losing money on it. If it's not earning
I don't
you,
lose much money like
well,
that.
There's a guy once said one time. He said, "I love for a guy to make $1 because if he can make $1, there's a possibility I'll get a nickel back of it."
You know, that's what I can't understand, why these people are so jealous of people making money. I wish there was 427,000 millionaires in Campbell County.
Right.
I wouldn't want them all to live here at the same time, but I'd make money off of them if there's that many.
Absolutely. That goes back to capitalism, and this is a subject that has been, we don't touch on very much, but there was a study here not long ago, a survey run on how many people, they done a survey that would be willing for this country to go strictly socialism. And at that point, it was like, I believe it was hitting in the high 30% that would agree for this country to become socialist and do away with our capitalist way. Well, I won't call it a form of government. It's a type of economy, a capitalistic economy.
I read some time back about a psychology experiment, and the way they set it up, I don't remember all the details, but they had a group of people, and one of the situations was a bunch of people get to make, say, $100, and in the process of them making $100, you make 25. Would you rather have that happen, or them not make the $100 and you wouldn't get the 25 either?
Right.
And they, a majority of the people, and it wasn't just one or two, it was actually a majority of the people would sacrifice the $25 to keep the other guy from making 3 times as much as he did. And that's not the right number, but that's the situation.
It's the principle.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, greed works on both ends. It not only works on the people who are high achievers, but it also works on those who are low achievers who want to take what the high achievers have earned.
Well, we don't ever teach in school that if you go out there and create wealth, there's more for everybody. People grow up thinking there's just so much and we're going to have to divide it equally. Well, I'd rather have 10% of $1 million is to have 100% of $10. Well, the more wealth there is out there, the better off we are.
Some people, rather than earning part of something, they would rather have all of nothing.
That's right.
They really would. And I found people around here a lot. You know, I learn. Sometimes I'm a slow learner. But you take and do a deal with somebody, and let's say you buy something for 20, and you sell it for 40, and he finds out about it. He'll somehow come back and find some way to cheat you or steal from you the $20 that you made off of your deal with him, because he absolutely does not intend for you to make any money off of him. And when they work for you, most people around here will only work just enough to cover the cost of their labor. Okay, they will not make the man any money that they're working for.
It's hard. All three of us know that it's hard to hire anybody that will actually make you better off. The most you can hope for usually is to just be able to hold your own and get a little rest. The fact that you hire somebody just gives you a break. Now, it might be that you're able to increase your business, but not often do they actually generate enough to pay themselves and make you something too.
That's very, very true.
And it's a whole lot easier to find somebody that'll tear up, break, or steal.
Right.
Well, I guess tear up and break the same thing. Lose, break, or steal as much as they'll make for you.
Well, nowadays, if you hire somebody to do manual work, they will show up with a cigarette in one hand,
cell phone in the other,
a Mountain Dew in the other, or a cigarette in the Mountain Dew in one hand, and a cell phone in the other, and they wonder how come they can't get any work done.
We had a fellow one time, and been a long time ago, and somebody come in and made a comment, said, boy, said that guy was one heck of a good mechanic till he lost both hands. And they said, what do you mean lost both hands? It's like you said, he had a coffee cup in one hand, a cigarette in the other, said he lost both hands.
Right. I was selling a tool carrier, a leather tool thing you wrap around, you put your hammer and everything in. And the fellow said, well, he says he worked as a carpenter. I said, well, this thing will make you money. He said, what do you mean? I said, I had a guy working for me. I said, every time we went to the bathroom, it took him 15 minutes to take his tool belt off, lay it down, go to the bathroom. It took him 15 minutes to put it back on. I said, that tool carrier made him money putting it on, taking it off, because he was working about an hour, you know. So I said, just think how much you can make taking this thing on and off on your job. So I wanted to get to another motivating factor that back when I was a young man was perhaps the main motivating factor, and that was the fear of starvation.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays you don't have that fear, and if you don't believe that, you look in the back of my truck. I went down and bought $8.74 worth of bread, and they said, take 2 racks, we got so much. Well, I've got a whole pickup truckload of food that is fit for human consumption in the back of my truck. I mean, it's...
Now, I got to go down and get some feed, too.
You need to get you some.
Well, I'm kind of waiting till it cooled off a little. Bread molds in a hurry.
Well, I know that, you know.
Kind of hold. I finally...
Right.
It got so bad the goat wouldn't eat it.
But you know, mine love it, whether it's molded
well, I know, but mine has turned into green powder.
Huh?
Mine was turned into green powder. I always had to, it got so I'd have to fight that goat to get it tore open and give him bread. So I went just giving him a loaf from the wrapper, and he'd tear into it. Well, I got down to 2 loaves. I was gone, and I come back, and there's 2 loaves in there, and couldn't tell his bread.
They had turned.
And I gave it that goat, and so help me, he tore into it and wouldn't finish.
This country
he
here,
did finish opening.
Nobody during the past 50 years that I know of has ever had any reason to be hungry in this country.
No, you ain't no use in that. I could survive as long as I was able to get around and had good mind. I could survive without any money at all.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be comfortable, wouldn't have what I wanted, but I could eat.
You know, I'm kind of made a meal back several years ago when I told them I could feed myself for $50 a month.
Yep.
and I still believe that those people who draw food stamps and things of that nature who do not work and they're able-bodied ought to only be able to get flour and shortening and beans and things that they have to cook. I don't think they ought to be able to go in there and get Twinkies and
Mountain Dews.
Of course, most people take their food stamps and go down and they'll buy a pickup truckload of Mountain Dew and something, and then they'll take and sell them and get money out of their food stamps that way.
Yeah. Some people actually operate businesses on that principle.
They absolutely do. There's a culture. It's like what you're saying. There's no reason for anybody to. Now, I'm not going to say go hungry. Now, hunger is a word that's used, and hunger is a feeling that you feel.
I went to bed hungry last night just because I was too lazy to cook.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let me put it this way. There should be no one malnutrition or suffering from malnutrition, undernourished. There should be nobody undernourished. Now, hunger is a word, like I say, that we use. Let me back up. A story I read. This guy, he was worth $6 billion. That's with a B. And they had an article in the Reader's Digest on this guy, and this stuck with me. The guy said, well, let me put it this way. Before he became rich, he went broke several times. He bought a gold mine somewhere down in, I want to say Australia or somewhere, down in South America or somewhere. He bought a gold mine. And he dug and he dug and he dug till he just finally gave up and quit and sold it. And when he sold it, the next buyer hit gold 6 inches deeper in. He was 6 inches from the gold.
Right.
So he said that taught him a lesson about never giving up. So that taught him something. But he said he never, when he sat down to eat, he would never eat all that he wanted, to remind him of when he did not have the resources or the funds to eat like that.
Right.
But he said he would never eat all that he wanted. Yeah. Now, this comes back to a person who has self-discipline, self-control. I think you've heard of, well, everybody knows what fasting is or whatever. A lot of people need to set themselves goals. Let me kind of get off on a little more philosophy. We have 2 or 3 generations of people who have never been tested. And whenever I say tested, they don't know what they're capable of. We have untold people graduating from high schools and you name it, every other school, that has never been tested. They don't know what they can stand. They don't know how much pain they can stand. They don't know how hungry they can go or how long they can go without nourishment.
How cold they can be.
That's right. They've never been tested. And it's my opinion, out here in the real world, now I'm talking about where you have to survive or by your wits and your ability to move or whatever. If you don't know what you're capable of, you're never going to make any success to amount to anything. And this is something I think, and years ago, I used to do a lot of this stuff myself, and I'm not as much anymore to it because I've got to the point, and I can't use the words that sometimes you might use, but I don't feel that I've got anything to prove anymore. Used to, I always had a feeling that I had to prove something, not only to the world, but to myself. And ever so often, if I'd start getting a little lax, I'd find me a high piece of steel and go out and walk on it.
Right.
Or I would do something just to...
say you'd done it.
Yeah, just to say I'd done it or to overcome it. Used to, height would bother me. And we've got a silo that's seven stories up. And I can climb that silo and I can go on top of it. And given just a few minutes, I become accustomed to it. And it doesn't bother me one bit. Now, it would bother me for somebody else to do it. And
it bothers me for me to do it too.
well, there's a lot of things that I don't want to see other people do, but I'll do them myself. But now, like I say, I've got to the point now that I don't have to do these things, and I know my balance is not as good as it used to be, and whatever, so I accept that.
Well, you know,
goes with age and whatever.
Age,
right.
I still have a little twinge in this elbow. I was up on the roof of my house out in Denver, and it was rainy and slick, and you know, young man.
You getting your goat down?
No, a young man didn't have no business being up there. Well, my feet slipped, and I went down on this elbow, and there was a tarp there, and on that tarp was a 2x4 sticking up, and that 2x4 hit me right in my funny bone.
No,
you know.
yeah,
now,
that nerve. It's not a bone, it's a nerve.
About 2 weeks ago, I went down on the treadmill down at the exercise place, you know, and got my knees all skid out.
Yeah.
I wonder what happened to you.
So,
I thought that had something to do with carpet burn.
I don't do those things to prove I can do it. I do it because I feel like I need to exercise,
right.
you know, and I need to stay active. But what we're getting back to the food situation, you know, sometimes, to say the least, I've got a smart mouth. That's just to say the least.
It's got me in trouble.
I know. I told where you know, in my family, 8 children, my mother and dad, all my aunts and uncles that I ever met, cousins or anything else. There was never an obese person in my family on either side. I come up here, and the first thing I see, people down at the stoplight begging for money to feed the hungry. And my first statement to one of them was, you know, fat people are always hungry.
I saw that, heard that somewhere.
Yeah, I did. I made that statement. And I have never seen people who have let their physical condition deteriorate so much as a result of grabbing these carbonated drinks, which are some of the most fattening things that you can put in your stomach. And I really think if Michelle Obama and them are interested in people's health and welfare, they will take soft drinks off of the food stamp
eligibility. I understand what you're saying. Back, I can remember when the food assistance first started, and at that time it was done different than what it is now.
You started off the back of a truck.
That's right, they did. And there was the staples. There was the such as
spam and
right, and beans, and different things. And you know, they were distributed down here at a local place right down here below us.
A lot of cheese and stuff like that, surplus.
I have walked the railroad track, and those people would take that stuff, some of them. Now, I know there's a lot of people that put it to good use, but you would find those beans, bags of them, laying up the railroad track. They would take the cheese and whatever, but they wouldn't even bother to carry the beans.
Right.
Not even to, you know, give them to somebody.
There's a couple of ladies that don't drive, elderly women, that I take out to Open Arms Ministry to pick up what they're eligible for. I think after I don't ever pick anything up because I think you have to be a food stamp recipient and some other things. So even though some of that stuff look real good to me, I'd love to get me a big box of it, but I take them out there, and I'm surprised at the number of $35,000 and $40,000 vehicles that people drive up in and get their food, get their allotment of stuff from open arms.
Yep.
And
I understand.
evidently they have food stamps card also, because you can't, I understand you can't get it unless you have food stamp card.
I sometimes
if you're
think
too proud to ask for help, they ain't gonna give you none.
Right.
if, gentlemen, there's all sorts of things that go on that just totally, I cannot understand them. And maybe it's not meant to be. This thing that the president kicked in, this your cash for clunkers thing, to me, that was the sorriest thing that was you can imagine.
Yeah.
When you take good equipment and take it in and drain the oil out of it and put salt water in it and crank it up to run it to where that it cannot go back into use. You know what I'm saying? This equipment, they tell us that we should conserve and we shouldn't do this or that. But yet, if you stop to think, if you've got an automobile out here or a truck or anything that's got 100,000 miles left in it, if you stop and think of what it took to build that vehicle, by the time you mined the ore, smelt it, cast it, machine it, everything that goes into building that vehicle, and then you just destroy it.
That was one of them cronyism things.
That's all it
get
was.
Some money, get some business for the car people.
To prop up the car industry.
There were thousands and thousands of cars mashed up that are better shape than anything I've ever owned.
Absolutely. And to me, to go out and destroy a piece of equipment for nothing other than to make more economics for another group of people, that's not good. Like I say, I'd have to go back to my little black book to pick out the words to describe them.
5 cars and trucks right now.
Well,
And out of the 5 cars and trucks, if you get them all together and sell them at a fair price, they wouldn't make enough money to pay half of a good down payment on a real car.
I understand what you're saying.
And you get half of the down payment. You didn't say pay for half of the car.
That's right, half of a down payment.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, well, the truth is,
you
all
take
of them together wouldn't bring in $2,500, $3,000, and they serve my needs.
Well, you take that old Dodge Dakota truck I drive. I got 311,000 miles on it, I believe. I checked the mileage on it, pulling that little trailer on an 80-mile trip. It got 17.5 miles to the gallon. Without the trailer, depending on how I drive it, it gets about 20 miles to the gallon, you know.
Well, about that until that truck you got off on me.
It uses about, depending on how much I drive it, about 2 quarts of oil a month, okay? I have never changed the oil in it but one time. I have never had to replace the starter nor the alternator. I did have to replace the air conditioning.
Did the crank handle break off the window?
It has crank windows. I've never had to replace that.
That was the air conditioner.
I threw a 2x4 through the back window, and my piece of plexiglass blew away the other day, so I'm going to have to cut me another piece of plexiglass to go on there. But it has never failed to crank. I've never replaced the spark plugs, nor the rotary button. I have replaced the fuel filters and the air filters on it, but
Well,
I've never changed the oil in it one time.
We've got, sometimes I think that whatever we encounter as far as hard times.
And I've relined the brakes twice in 300,000 miles. That shows you how good I am on brakes.
You know where you got to stop before you get there.
He got a problem.
Of course, I worn out a few
shoes
shoes dragging them, but
sometimes.
Let me just
go
do
ahead.
something.
Yeah, I know what. Go ahead.
We need to tell them a little bit about our sponsors, Poor Old Digger, and that there fella that runs them ambulances.
oh, I came by Digger today, and he was out there a stomping and a pushing propane in one of those tanks. Now, when you go down there to get propane at Wilson's Propane down in Sawmill Holler, right where the road forks,
Right in the middle of the
you
road.
get a full tank of propane. I've had people to tell me, and I know it myself, look, I get my tank filled up at Digger's, it burns longer than when I get them filled up elsewhere. And the reason is quite simple. Digger puts his tanks on a scale,
scales,
and he makes sure you get, if it's a 20-pound tank, you get 20 pounds. If it's a 30-pounder, you get 30 pounds. It's right on up. 100-pounders, he even weighs them to make sure that you get. And Digger always uses, what do you call it, when he opens a valve, so it'll push any air that's in the tank out so
Purge.
he can get more propane in there.
Yeah.
That's a liquid matter that's going in there, and he opens that little valve, and when it starts spewing it out, he knows your tank is absolutely full, and he closes the valve. They don't do that at these other places.
I'm having our tow
That's
motor.
Wilson's Gauge, 562-54444.
Our tow motor.
No, leave one of them
Yeah,
off. It's 5444 or 5444.
5444.
But if you dial 54444, you'll still get Digger.
Right.
The
Yeah, you will.
We got to tell them about that there ambulance guy
Yeah.
too. One hauls Bob to the hospital when he drinks that rotten later juice. Battle Care, 562-9370.
You know, it makes all the difference in the world when you are in business for yourself, as opposed to being able to go back to the well as the government business will do. They'll make a difference whether they make any money or whether they waste money. It's nothing out of their pocket. I see Vital Care, when they have made their run, driving at a sensible rate of speed up and down Jacksboro Pike.
Well, the county goes back occasionally and asks for more money to run their ambulance, and the only thing Vital Care wants is more business.
Right.
Figure it out for yourself, folks. 562-9370. Help yourself when you help Vital Care. Save the county money. Use
Right.
Vital Care.
They are good. They're well equipped. They are the only medical transport in this area that has a mobile ventilator. Or if you have to be on the ventilator, you can be transported by Vital Care from, say, LaFollette Hospital to UT or wherever you need to go. And they are good people, locally owned, and it does not cost the taxpayers any money at all for them to perform their services.
Now, sir, you had a point you wanted to raise.
Got several of them, but
You got 7.5 minutes.
the bottom line, as far as this tax increase, property taxes are going to be taken from or charged to the people who own property. It boils down to anyone who has acquired any wealth or whatever and put it into real estate, be it their house or whatever else, are the ones that are going to be paying this tax. And if I'm not mistaken, I need to do some research, but I believe there's about 3,500 to 4,000 property owners in this county, and those are the people who are going to be paying this tax increase. I know.
Overall,
Well, in other words,
property
what you're
tax
saying,
income in this county, you know?
I have no idea.
what you're saying that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 34 to 35,000 people in this county that the tax increase ain't even going to bother directly. It's not
Directly.
gonna bother.
Now, it'll affect some of them indirectly, and that would be the people who are renting. They will pay some of it. But the people who, well, let me go back to this too. Whenever it comes to renting property, residential, the government is in the residential housing business. They have the what we always call the projects, and they're in direct competition with other people who rent properties. as far as residential is concerned. You follow me? They're in direct competition with you. Now there is a program, and I can't think of the name of it right now, HUD, that rents properties from individuals, or they supplement the rent.
Section 8, and where your home can qualify for
the
money
HUD,
from HUD, from House and Urban Development.
Mm-hmm. But the bottom line, though, those who own property will be taking the brunt of this thing.
Yeah, they'll be paying the whole thing.
Yeah, well, that's right. They will. Like I said before, taxes will get to the point that people cannot afford to pay them.
The people that are raising your taxes now don't care because they won't be around to answer for that anyway.
That's a good point.
And that's what always gets us in trouble. The same people promise you when you got annexed, it wouldn't affect you. They ain't around now.
Well, that's correct. They're not there to answer, and it can get awful disheartening. Let me get back to another thing here. There's several things that, there's an article I read, and it had to do with voting and the Democrats, Republicans, or whatever. But anyhow, they did a survey on how many people's knowledge of government and how it operates, and they run a survey and asked people how many of them knew knew one branch of government, and they was like 27% of the voting public, or the people out here, that don't even know what the 3 branches of government are. And the point that this person was trying to make is that if you don't know at least one branch of government, that you shouldn't be allowed to vote. So what do you know about what you're voting about, other than just go out there and say, well, I'm going to vote because I get a free cell phone?
I believe Rush Limbaugh calls them the low information voters.
Yeah, or no information. Low might be shooting high on them. But I occasionally...
You remember when Obama was first campaigning for president, and they interviewed this one woman, and he was going to give all this money and everything?
Yeah.
And they said, well, where's he going to get this money? He says he's going to get it from his stash.
Yeah.
You know?
The Obama phones, they're going to pay our mortgage and whatever else. But I see that point, and I've made the statement that the next election, now this last election I did all the research that I could on everything, that the people that were running and whatever, to get as much information as I could. But it boils down to, and in my opinion, you got a percentage of people. Let's say that you got 45% of the people who do what I'm saying, do the research and whatever on the politicians, take their stands, or at least what they say they stand for, which half of what you hear you can't believe. Then you got another 45% out here who just vote, but they don't check it out. And then you got that 10% in between there that couldn't care one way or the other.
Most of the people vote, and I'm going to say most, better than 50% of the people vote. And they don't even realize they're doing that, but they vote for the people that'll steal the most from somebody else and give it to them.
That's correct. But I've come to the conclusion that small majority in between, let's say the Democrats and Republicans, or whatever you want to say it, whatever demographics you want to divide it up in, you got so many of each side. Then you got that little middle section right in there that makes the decision as to who holds office.
Well,
that small percentage. Now,
one justice in the Supreme Court is making the decision for all of them.
Okay. But what I'm saying is I've about decided this little divider in there, percentage that decides, I think they make their decision by who serves the best hot dog. So I may join that little group, and it'd be a lot simpler.
It's almost 50% of the people are on the public dole.
Well, okay.
And the statement's been made many, many times that when you borrow from Peter to pay Paul, you can always count on Paul for support.
Well, when you reach that 50%, or you reach 51 or 52, and I believe that it's about 55%.
We've already got well over 50% of the people voting for the people that'll steal the most and share it with them, and that's the same thing.
Well, I still try to do my.
They don't see it as stealing, but that's what it is.
About socialism earlier.
Socialism is what it is.
Once everybody finds out that they're going to get just as much by not working as they're going to get by working, then that's when the socialist systems go down.
And if you'll tune in Saturday, right here back on the TV, got it up and running, Bob.
Right.
LafolletNews.com, LaFollette Local News, or Hillbilly TV. You'll all come back here and see this show we'll put on here Saturday.
4 o'clock on Saturday.
4 o'clock on Saturday. You can also tune in to WLAF 1450, WLAF 1450 WLAF.com, or 100.9 FM. Thank you.
Right.
See you. Thank you, guys.
See ya.